Chordplay, and this is the Acoustic Side of Dokken. And I've had requests for more George Lynch, and I've also had requests for more acoustic music. So I thought I could kill two birds with one stone and feature George Lynch, but also feature, some acoustic ideas from George. And George is definitely a really interesting, guitarist. I've talked about him in 3-for-all lessons. I also did a Chordplay, focused more on electric Dokken music. And this is going to focus more on some of his acoustic textures and sounds. And there's actually a lot more than you might think hiding in Dokken's music. So if you're like me and you think of George Lynch, you probably think of a custom graphic, ESP electric guitar, usually with, skulls or tiger print or a snake or something like that. But he did consistently use acoustic guitars, kind of in the background behind some of their, most popular songs. And, it's kind of easy to be distracted by the big riffs and guitar solos and that big crushing, electric guitar that you'd hear. And then kind of hiding, like in the back or whatever, are these acoustic, sounds and ideas. And it's really interesting to tap into this because these are the parts that I usually skipped over, waiting to play the electric guitar parts. And then when I finally kind of sat down and thought, I'm gonna learn how to play that, or I never learned that acoustic part. I always just waited, for the electric parts. And if you're like that, if you're like me, it's always good to kind of go back and revisit some of those songs and learn those behind the scenes, parts, because you never know, you might tap into something new or different, or you might discover something new about a song that you've played, a million times, but maybe you just never really played the rhythm part or the acoustic part. And there's something good about doing that and kind of digging even deeper into a song that you've already worked on. The music from this lesson is going to come from Tooth and Nail, Under Lock and Key, and Beast from the East. And they actually, in the mid-90s, Dokken released like an acoustic album, Live One Night, I think it's called. And some of the songs that are in this lesson are featured on that, acoustic album. And that was really rare to hear, unplugged Dokken music. They even did Tooth and Nail on there. And of course they changed and kind of revamped the song for an acoustic, version. But I was kind of shocked to hear that, like, what? They're doing Tooth and Nail, unplugged? But, they kind of changed the arrangement slightly, but it's still Tooth and Nail. And it's really interesting when groups do that, and they kind of almost give their music or their band kind of a makeover or a facelift, and they do something really different. With the opening, that was the song Without Warning from Tooth and Nail. It's the opening track. It's kind of instrumental, interlude before the song Tooth and Nail. And Without Warning is tricky. And it starts with the acoustic, and then George, kind of creeps in with the electric and plays some really cool, lead lines and electric parts there. But the acoustic part is interesting to jump into and challenge yourself with too. It's a picking workout. He's kind of flying through the chords, picked as arpeggios. And then he's avoiding the G string in the mix of, all these chords and picked patterns. And that's really tough because you have to, basically avoid that string right there in the middle. Something like this. So that's really tough. It opens up. And he's kind of just playing, an E5 with the open strings. And then he starts adding the C note there on the first fret on the B string. And that's going to change it to augmented, E augmented. So he starts with the low E open. And then once he adds this down, he kind of just reverts back to that E note there on the second fret on the D string. So he's only hitting the low E the very first time. Something like that. And then you're going to move basically to C, and you're going to go between C major 7 and C major. And there he's just kind of removing, the fretted part there on the D and the B string. And then you're going to move over to D, and that's going to be a D6 sus2 and then a D7 sus2. A one note or one finger, chord with two open strings. And then just go to A minor, and he's going to flirt with the A sus2 right there too, the open B string. And then you're doing a G5 and then a G5 over F sharp there at the end. And then you repeat that whole thing again. Great picking workout, like I said. So if you're looking for something to kind of challenge your picking hand, practice, without warning. That'll definitely kind of shape up your picking for sure. The next example comes from Alone Again, which is also from Tooth and Nail, and I featured this in the electric, the regular Dokken Chordplay episode that I made last year. And I wanted to include this again because I feel like this particular guitar part, it kind of is the epitome of everything, rhythm-wise, based around George Lynch. Because it has this very striking and dark and ominous, chord right at the very start. And George definitely has this notorious history of playing all these twisted and unusual chords in his music, and I love it. It's got this really exotic flavor. Something like this. That just kind of rings, and it has that kind of twisted, almost sinister, sound. So that's an E minor add 9 at the beginning right there. And then right here, he kind of moves into, it's like a C add 9. So we're including that open D string, and that's the 9th right there in C. And then he just kind of moves over to a D5 right there. That's kind of the epitome of George Lynch and his chord vocabulary, because he always finds these really dark and twisted and sometimes dissonant chords in his music. All right, up next is the song Into the Fire, which is also from Tooth and Nail, and it looks and sounds like this. You can see we're basically starting with this A5 and then a single G note, and then you're going to move down to the F right there on the first fret with the open D and open G, and that's going to change it to an F6 sus2. Something like that. And then right there, he kind of played a little piece of G, and then a D over F sharp right there. So you put that together, up next is the interlude to Into the Fire, and it's this short little segue, right in the middle of the song, something like this. Verse right there, but that's a D minor over A at the start, and then A minor, but it's just a one finger version of A minor, with 2 open strings, and then grab that D there on the 3rd fret on the B string, and it keeps going back to that A string too. And then it changes ever so slightly, do the A minor, and then this is going to basically be an A sus2 sus4, and then move that back to that C note, and then you're going to go back to that A sus2 sus4, and then A minor, and then just the open B, which I guess you could think of that as like the sus2. Slowly right there, it's something like this. Chordplay, which is the only studio track found on Beast from the East, and it looks something like this. It's pretty basic, but it's got a really cool sound to it. So there, he's kind of doing D minor, and he's also flirting with the sus2, you know, that open high E string. And then move down to a C sus2 right here. And then G over B. So he's kind of revisiting some of the textures you can find in Into the Fire, but it's in a different key, and obviously he's using different chords. But I like how George is kind of mixing and matching and creates that kind of ominous, you know, bass note where you're coming down and then, right? And he's doing it with chords. So there's the G over B and then a B flat 6. And then you're going to C. And then just go back to that D power chord right there. Guitar part, but it's really cool and it's got a nice ring to it. The last example is from the song Unchain The Night, which is the opening cut from Under Lock and Key, and it looks like this. Basically flirting with E minor, and he's kind of creating this, you know, melodic part based around E minor, and he's basically targeting this. So there you can see it's the open G, and then he's really just playing that melody. You know, but he's disguising it in the middle of those chords. It's going to open up. It's kind of going to a D5. It's like a D sus4, I guess, right there. So there he's kind of playing with the 4th. There's D5, D6, and D7. You know, something like that. Down to that low E, you know, on the repeat. And then the second time through, it ends a little bit differently, where he kind of starts playing with like an A minor and an A sus2, something like this from the start. Right there, it's kind of like a C6, like a little bit of C and a C6, and then here's where that A minor and A sus2 come in. All right, that's going to wrap this episode of Chordplay with the Acoustic Side of Dokken, and definitely George Lynch is one of those guitarists, you know, I mean, you can focus and kind of hone in on his electric playing, you can focus and hone in on his acoustic playing, you know, lead, rhythm, fills, riffs, you know, even his tone is worth checking out and trying to emulate or cop some of those sounds. I mean, just, you know, a powerhouse guitarist and a package player, you know, where it's like, okay, he's got it all. He's got chords and rhythms and riffs, great tone, great leads, legato runs and tapping licks and string skipping and all this just craziness, you know. So he has a very kind of reckless abandon and this playful side. And there's just something about his music. I've always kind of gone back to George and found inspiration or some guidance or some new ideas. And really special guitarist for sure. So leave some feedback and some comments. Please subscribe to Late Night Lessons, and I'll be back before you know it with more content and material. Thank you.